Hey, welcome to the Handy Randy Show. Again, you may or may not notice that Captain Ernie Stadvec is in the studio with us today. And when Ernie's on the show, that means we're not probably going to do a lot of car stuff. That means we're going to do boats or airplanes. And today, we're on that favorite subject of yours, aviation.
Right.
Now, there are a few myths about aviation in Ohio that I would like to address. And firstly, Dayton, Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, and a lot of the Orville and Wilbur Wright, because their bicycle shop was in Dayton, Ohio. Mm-hmm. A lot of people feel that the Wright brothers were involved in aviation here in Ohio. But I married a German woman, and her lineage was Fankhauser. And there was one of her great-grandfathers was Wilberforce Fankhauser, that good German name.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
And I was told, now you can tell me because you were part of the armed services, I was told that Wilberforce was so instrumental in the aviation department that the Air Force was named after him, Air Force Wilberforce. Any truth to that, Ernie?
Well, I've never heard that, but there is a Wilberforce College.
But might possibly be.
Yes, so you're connected to that.
Absolutely connected.
Yeah.
Well, Wilberforce and he had a couple brothers. He fortunately or unfortunately married a lady named Myrtle. And the money from the family came from Myrtle. And I don't know where the money, I think it was maybe in the Fankhauser sausage line, possibly. I'm not too sure. But Myrtle was the spokesperson for the family, and she bankrolled all of the aviation experiments. And Wilberforce received a lot of notoriety because of his success and failures. Uh-huh. And there was more failure probably in the aviation.
What year was this? Is this before the Wright brothers?
Before the Wright brothers.
Yeah, well,
during the Wright brothers round.
Yeah.
Okay. Early in the 1900s.
Yeah. Well, there was an Otto, and I can't remember his last name. He was in gliders. He was the first guy to fly gliders.
A lot of experimental planes during this period of time. That early on, before you were involved in the planes, and we have a rare, very rare film clip of Wilberforce and Myrtle, and them talking about some of their. And I have this family video, and I'd like to take a look right now of Wilberforce and Myrtle, and they're showing you some of the experience and experiments that they had early on, even before Wilbur and Orville. Watch.
Coatesville, Pennsylvania. So, what is this? It's like nothing anyone should see on the public highway. Wait a minute, it's turning into the field. Maybe it's a newfangled potato planter or something. No, sir, it's an aerial plane with turntable wings. George Spratt, the inventor, figured that's how she could taxi along the highways and maybe the skyways. The experts give 10 to 1 she can't fly. He's set on taking a chance, and there he goes! And that's the time the experts got fooled. Good boy, George.
With the three-wheel landing gear, any kind of a landing is perfectly all right, frontwards or sideways, one wheel, or any other way that you wish. The GPS sender steers with a wheel instead of the conventional rudder bar, both in the air and on the ground. Similar to this. The flippers are handled by the forehand motion of the stick and the ailerons by the side. All right, Andy, let's go.
Well, a windmill will raise water, so why shouldn't it raise an airplane? Perhaps that's what Mr. Jonathan Caldwell thought when he designed and built this contraption, which is being shown to the public for the first time. The mill wheels going round are supposed to represent the flapping wings of a goose. The wheels turn all right, but it just won't leave the ground, not even when they drag it. It moves, though, and that's something. But any auto will go pretty well downhill. A good idea just the same, Professor, and better luck next time.
Don't laugh. This thing that looks as if half of it was missing really works. It's a new tubular plane invented by an Italian engineer who believes this design will someday break all records for speed and stability. You've often seen a barrel roll, but here's one that flies.
According to its inventor, Dr. Snyder. He calls it the flying wing, and experts think it's going to revolutionize aviation. It's supposed to be foolproof and has lots of speed and pep, as the doc's going to show you right now. Here she goes. Looks as if the inventor copied his idea from a butterfly. Being all wing turns it into a glider in case the motor gets heebie-jeebies and makes tail spins impossible, Dr. Snyder claims. It can top 100 miles an hour and is supposed to be as safe as old Dobbin for the family. If what the duck says comes true, we'll all be hopping around in these pancakes very soon.
No, it's not an airplane, and it isn't a balloon. It's a spindle airship, a new invention that has excited aeronautical engineers. Perhaps Mr. Pupper, the inventor, will explain the idea for us.
In place of wings, we use spindles on this ship. The large ones are the main lifters, and the small ones act as stabilizers. This is done by spiraling, so that the landing speed would be about 5 to 10 miles per hour.
Now, as they revolve, the spindles, with a little indentation, are creating a lifting vacuum above. Engineers predict the spindles will be more efficient than the wings of an airplane. There's only this about the spindle airship. She hasn't flown yet, but who can say she won't?
Umbrella.
Here's the latest in aviation, which an inventor's hope will be the family forever of the air. And it really works. The single circular wing allows a quick takeoff, and it can go 135 miles an hour. Don't worry about engine trouble. That pancake top allows it to drop slower than a parachute. And it can land at your front door. Maybe it's a future aerial taxi.
A tailless answer to the call issued by the Aeronautics Director of the Department of Commerce for a flipper of the air.
It is my hope that someday this little ship will become the great-great-granddaddy of America's air flipper.
Just a pair of wings and a place to sit. And what a place. The tiny craft weighs 1,100 pounds and has a wing spread of only 30 feet. A device on the wingtips controls direction. Meet the professor, folks. For 20 years, he's been watching a killy little bird and has finally discovered what makes it fly. All it takes is a tank full of oxygen, a left-handed monkey wrench, and a couple of nuts. Here we go. History in the making. It's the happiest day of the professor's life. Let's hope he's put salt on its tail. Going, that's all. Something new to make flying safer. Stabilizers like these keep the plane level while in flight. The pilot's taking up the ship to show you how the device works. There he is heading out of the cabin, leaving the plane completely under automatic control. See how smoothly it flies, without a human hand to guide it. Now the pilot's on the fuselage, and no one is in the cockpit. The test is a success and should encourage one-armed drivers who want to hug their girls. More convincing proof of the amazing and rapid progress of aviation you wouldn't want, I'm sure, than this demonstration at Baltimore today. J. Carl Bauer and Louis Huber went to work in their spare time to construct this poor man's dream, a plane propelled by bicycle pedals. It's a momentous occasion. All aviation stops to watch. Did someone say they laughed at the Wright brothers? Well, this pair will try again, too. Maybe make a bicycle out of airplane parts.
Paris offers a real novelty in aircraft. It's called the ellipsoplane and is based on the principles of a flying mosquito with a sting left out. Its tail sticks up in the middle and is supposed to prevent slips and nosedives. Now we'll see what we will see. It works. The brainchild of inventor Vicomte de Rouge speeds 60 miles an hour. For 5 years, the Vicomte has been laughed at, but now it is he who has the laugh.
Welcome back, Ernie Stadvec. We're talking about airplanes and experimental planes, and the idea when you're building experimental aircraft is to not test fly them yourself. Find someone that will fly them for you.
Crazy enough to fly it for you.
And you were crazy enough to get in some planes early on, and even in the 30s and 40s, 50s. Aviation was still in its infancy. It's only 50 years old.
Yes, yeah. You're right on that. Have you been down to the Maps Museum and seen the glider, the Martin glider? Do you know the story behind that?
Did you fly that?
Oh, no.
No, okay. I didn't know.
Okay, they flew before the Wrights, but it was a glider, and he was going to put an engine on it, but he couldn't find the money to build an engine. And he flew it right down here at Martin Field. That's why the Martin glider. And he flew it off of the farm, and he had his horse pull it down, and then the horse would stop right at the fence, and they'd cut the glider
Now,
off.
when you say Martin Field, was that in Portage County area?
No, that's down in Stark County.
Okay,
Yeah, east on Route 62.
okay.
But anyway, that was the first, and he was able to control the wings, and the Wright brothers didn't. They warped the wings, meaning they pulled the wing down. But he was able to, he had controls, and the Wright brothers even came up to look at his glider. And it was such a safe machine that his 8-year-old granddaughter flew it 3 times. And it's down here at the, it was in the museum in Washington, the Smithsonian, and they kind of let it deteriorate, and they finally gave it to the Maps Museum, and they rebuilt it, and it's hanging from the ceiling. There's quite a story. So the Martin glider.
I didn't know the rest of the story, and thank you for cluing that
But
in.
they didn't include the horse. Nobody
No,
but he
no.
pulled the thing all the way down. Isn't that
Unfortunately,
amazing?
the Fankhauser family didn't take Martin's advice. They tried to go in some other direction.
Well,
and
creative people do it that way.
and of course, Myrtle, she went through husbands like water through your fingers. She went through Wilberforce, and I think he wasn't smart enough to find a test pilot. And unfortunately, we lost Wilberforce, Fankhauser. And then we went on and married, and Myrtle married Wilberforce's brother, Gilberforce. And we never heard of Gilberforce. Because Gilberforce wasn't the one that was in the planes. He found people like Chuck Yeager that were daring. And what a great story that West Virginian put
Oh,
on in
yes.
this plane.
Absolutely.
And he would fly anything
Yeah.
upside down.
Yeah, either sober or else.
Well, I don't know about whether Gilberforce, being a good German, chances are that maybe he might have had a beer or two before he was involved in. I'm thinking some of the designs, but he fashioned his designs primarily early on after birds, and he used the aerodynamics of a bird and tried to fashion his flying machines from that. And again, I think that's probably why we never heard of Gilberforce Fankhauser.
Yeah, if it did he have an engine in the machine, or was it just a glider?
He was a bicycle mechanic. So he thought he could do it either by arm power or bicycle power.
I see.
And then later on, he tried, they experimented with jetpacks and engines, of course, they later on.
Jetpacks back then?
Yeah. Well,
He was way ahead of his
the
time.
Chinese had gunpowder 2,000, 3,000 years ago. So
Yeah.
I think Gilbert thought he could use some of that, and way before the.
That's interesting.
So he did, but you never heard of Gilberforce Fankhauser because it failed.
Yeah.
And we have proof of some of Gilberforce's failures on a rare film clip that you didn't even know.
You're
that
absolutely
existed.
right. I didn't even know Wilberforce. The only thing I knew about that was the college.
Right.
You're connected to that family then.
Famous aviation. That's why I'm so interested in this subject,
Yeah.
because of the lineage in my family.
Oh, absolutely.
And we
Can I
were
ask
out
you a
there.
personal question?
Go right ahead, anything.
What was a sausage recipe?
We'll get to that. We'll have
Okay.
to, old German recipe.
Okay.
And delicious Fankhauser Franks. We'll get to that after we show the rest of the story. Gilberforce trying to perfect those machines. He had it ready by the time you were up in the air.
Well, gee, thank you.
Watch.
Folks, here I am with a new device called the ornithopter. This device, I expect to attain flight in the air. Through a system of leveraged beds, plus the man's physical power, I believe it possible to fly as a bird. And here I am, you can look this device over. It appears heavy, it's light.
Well, that sounds okay if it works. But if Bertie doesn't fly when he makes that jump, he's going to get a real cold bath. Here he goes. Splash! Well, he got the bath all right, but is little Willard discouraged? Not a bit. Just wait a moment and you'll see. Now his feathers are all dry again. He's had a good dinner of canary seed, so maybe this time he'll really do it. He's going to soar gracefully off the rock, so he says. Keep your eye on the birdie. Cuckoo, cuckoo.
Here you see another type helicopter or direct lift air machine. Our principle, as you will see, is a flat plate or disc type propeller moving the air fast enough to produce a lift. Our engine is connected to our transmission by a jack shaft driven by a chain. Our transmission rotates and reciprocates our propeller. As the propeller goes up, we get our lifting power on the down reciprocation. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we'll show you how this works.
The pump chap there is a butcher by trade, but in his spare moments he's a student of aerodynamics. And right now he's demonstrating in a small way the principle of a new rocket device he's working on. Something must have gone haywire. But here's the real thing. Jack's bicycle rocket glider. And he's all set for a tryout here at the Metropolitan Airport. If it'll just work as he hopes, he'll be famous tomorrow. Then goodbye loin chops and rump steaks. The dog collar he's putting on is an ingenious arrangement which will enable him to aid the flight of his craft by a gentle flapping of the wings. So. With a little help from everything but gravity, Cohen gets his remarkable flying machine underway at terrific speed. That is, it'll get up speed if the assistant rocket engineer will only hurry up and put a match to the power plant. Oh, there goes another dream up in smoke. The idea wasn't so hot, but Cohen's burning up. What he should have next time is a pair of asbestos pants.
Many people have tried to duplicate birds. must be large enough and properly formed to develop lift equal to the weight of the machine and its pilot at the intended flying speed. The machine must have enough power and an efficient means of converting that power to propulsion in order to overcome its aerodynamic drag and maintain the intended flying speed. If it doesn't have enough power and propulsion, it'll never reach flying speed and thus will never fly. It needs stability and controls to set the angle and direction during flight. And of course, a head start won't help if the key design qualities aren't already present. And finally, the wings must be strong enough to support the total weight. Or in other words, it has to all hang together.
Talking about flying machines with Captain Ernie Stadvec. Captain Ernie, great heritage in our area, used to have a television show on WAKR TV, Channel 23,
Yes.
here in Akron. Unfortunately, this is the only local TV we have now.
Yeah, that's
So-
why I say you're a legend.
You're
you
back,
know?
though, but you're back. Now, all we need to do is bring a fuselage into this studio, and we could reinvent the Captain Ernie show.
Oh, my goodness.
Wouldn't that
You
be
think the
wonderful?
world is ready for it?
You know what? If they survive this show, they'll be ready for anything.
Oh, wonderful. Okay.
Now, you had a lot of, in your employ, you had a lot of pilots.
Yes, I had 40 pilots at one time.
And
40 prima donnas, I might
I
add.
was just going to say, I would think that, especially back in the 50s, 40s, 50s, a lot of these pilots maybe were World War II veterans that you employed, not your regular, normal, walk-of-the-mill type people.
We had probably 3, but the rest of them were young guys that were just crazy about aviation and flying. And I never wanted to, of course, I never want to say anything about an introverted guy, but you never wanted to hire to fly an airplane. You know, especially one that you own that's going to carry people or freight or whatever. You wanted the guy that was a pain in the you-know-what. And a guy that thought he was the best. And that way, these guys flew at night on our scheduled airline out of Youngstown, hauling freight, night after night in the worst weather in the world, and they took pride in it. When United and these other big airlines canceled out, my guys didn't cancel out. It was a matter of pride, because I'm better than those guys.
They lived on the edge.
And they loved it. You know, we're flying these military cast-offs, I call them, C-45s, I had a C-47 at one time, leased a C-46, but mainly we flew the old C-45s, twin-engine airplanes, buy them from the Air Force or Army for $8,000 with new tires and full tanks of gas. I don't know why the government would park them, but I want to thank you taxpayers. Brand new tires and tanks of gas.
Well,
We'd convert them, and we'd fly as many as 20 flights a night.
Did you have a regular maintenance schedule mandated by the FAA back
Oh,
then?
yes, absolutely. Yeah, you hung because the FAA was on your neck all the time.
And there were certain times where the engines had to be refitted?
Yeah, there was a Pratt & Whitney engines. Now Pratt & Whitney 985s, 450 horsepower each. And on my Lockheed, I had 450s. But on Amelia Earhart's, she had 600 horsepower. They were the secret engine at that time. But anyway, we just got these airplanes, turned them into freighters, and they were great. You know, the Pratt & Whitney engine had run forever. We had 1,500 hours mandated to overhaul. Well, it really wasn't a mandate for overhaul. It was a mandate for an airworthiness directive on a gear. So if you took it apart to take the gear out, you might as well overhaul the engine. So we had 1,500 hours. And the thousands and thousands and thousands of hours that we flew, we had 2 engine failures. And one of them was caused by the pilot. And the other one, a cylinder blew off right through the cowling. That airplane had 1,499 hours on it. Oh. And over about 50 miles from here, it just blew off. Well, the engine kept on running. The guys brought it in. So as long as the top cylinder didn't all the engine oil go out.
You had mentioned Amelia Earhart, and those of you that know anything about that story, lady and her history, just recently they've pretty much proven the fact that they know where she crashed, that she was a survivor of the crash for a period of time, because they found a piece of aluminum that was a photograph was riveted onto that aircraft, and they found that piece of aluminum offshore at that island.
Okay. I have written about that, and my son and I went to Saipan in Tinian Island in 1994 because a strange guy came into the office, wanted to buy a manual, and we got talking. He turned out to be chief of detectives up at Garfield Heights. And he told me a strange story. This was in 1969, I believe. He heard a couple of guys talking at a bar in the Holiday Inn. He was at some function. They were Marines that were stationed on Saipan during the war. After the island was secured, they were up in the hills looking for souvenirs. And they stood atop this British gun the Japanese had captured, and they saw this silver airplane tied down. And when they went back and told their commander, he said, "You shut up, you don't say a word about that." And then these guys got enough money in 1968 to go to Saipan. And because they talked to kids that saw this big airplane land on Saipan Beach. And my son and I, that's where the invasion came in. My son and I went to that beach to see if you could land a DC-6 on it. And there were Chamorro children. They're the natives of those islands. And they saw the airplane land. The military saw the airplane land. And when the people got out, the Japanese caravan came up, and the commander came out. He says he was the commander of the garrison at Saipan Island. And he says a tall woman got out and a tall man. And she says, "I'm Amelia Earhart." The commander says, "We know who you are." Took them, they put them into a prison, they got dysentery. My son and I went and found where the prison was, which is not hard to find. We've gone through the jungle. And then the story went on where she was she and Noonan were in these cages. And they had a Navy pilot there that was executed right there in the cage. But anyway, then they had this one little girl was coming home from school, no, a little guy rather. He was about 9 years old, coming home from school and going through the old graveyard. My son and I went right to that old graveyard. It was overgrown, big statue of Christ like this. And she got scared because they're afraid of the Japanese. This cavalcade comes in. Two people get out, they're bent over. They had dysentery because they'd been in the Japanese hospital. And people that took care of them made sworn statements that they took care of these people that worked for the Japanese. Then they were forced to kneel. They were beheaded right there, and their bodies were kicked into the grave, gasoline poured on them, and they're burned. They had witnesses to that, the Chamorro people. So my son and I went back. I wanted to talk to, because the women and the men that were there, kids were about 68 or so. Went up, some Chamorro people were standing over talking while we're looking into this prison thing. And they're speaking English. So I go over and ask them if do you know the woman, is she still around, or the man that saw the airplane land and saw the... No English. They walk away real quick. They would not talk about it. And these guys from Cleveland went there, and the woman was 68 at the time, and she showed them where the graves were. Well, they then got screens and had the screens built, hired some people, and sifted all the sand there and the dirt. They came up with bones. They sent them down to Ohio State. And the DNA, this guy had the world's top forensic bone scientist down there. And he said the DNA is gone because of the fire. Because DNA was really in its infancy then. This is 1969. And but they did find a bone that this guy said this jawbone belonged to one of the prominent and Caucasian woman. I don't know how he came up with that, but with a prominent jaw. Well, Amelia Earhart had a prominent jaw. So they tried to find her dentist. She's from Boston. They couldn't find anything. Everything was gone. And so the bones probably are still down there unless this guy is retired. So we heard all this. Then I did a show on this too, where I took them the route from New Guinea, where they're going to go to Howland Island. It's 2,500 miles. And why did the United States government station a cutter there in the depth of the Depression? Coast Guard as a radio station. Why did the United States government build an airstrip on Howland Island, a deserted place in the depth of the Depression? Who paid for that airplane, which cost quite a bit of money then?
So that conspiracy theory of spying on the Japanese.
Yeah, why did she
long
change
before.
from heading west to heading east at the last minute? And these kids that saw the airplane land walked, and they described exactly what's inside the airplane. The drift meter and all this so-called secret, the big fuel tanks. But you draw a line from New Guinea to Howland Island, it goes through the Marshall Islands. And the Japanese were fortifying all these islands against the League of Nations. They had, I think, Palau was there, Truk, Rabaul, all of them around there. In fact, those islands were so heavily fortified, MacArthur bypassed them. They would not attack them. They attacked Palau, but not Truk and Rabaul, because it was like Iwo Jima.
This is Captain Ernie Stadvec, World War II historian and theorist.
You're right.
Conspiracy.
Oh, I don't see a conspiracy man I didn't love, you know. But anyway, that was, this was so emphatic, all the eyewitnesses.
Yeah.
And the people, the Japanese people that came to this country became citizens that worked for the army there in the hospital. They confirmed everything.
No kidding. But
you go to the Pentagon, and there's a veil of secrecy. They don't want to embarrass a good friend of ours now.
I see.
And anyway, I was involved in another one. I had 2 guys killed over Mansfield in an airplane, rammed by a jet fighter. And you talk about cover-ups.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's another story. You don't have
We've been
enough time.
exploring a lot of aviation stories, and as if anyone knows anything about the government, not just our government, all governments, there's always theories and cover-up and so forth. UFOs, you just about turn on any station. I think there's a probably right now on another channel, there's probably a program about UFO cover-ups. And another show that we'll do in the future, we'll get back to some more of that. I'm sure you got a lot of stories.
I'd like to tell you about the ghost airplanes, too. One right from Akron has never been found in Lake Erie. The Northwest Airlines airliner went into Lake Erie and has never been found. Not one piece of that General Tire big amphibian has ever been found. So the ghost airplanes.
Okay, so it may have been taken up.
Well, yeah, but maybe taken down. Okay, a guy, I was at a dinner, and the guy says, well, you know, there are big caverns under the lakes up there. And it may have sunk into one of those. Well, I never heard that before, but anything's possible. But how could this airplane crash in Lake Erie because of a dumb thing the pilot did, and he got fired, and the FAA and all that? One guy died, and the airplane, the witnesses saw the airplane fill with water and sink. 5 miles off ashore. And they've never found, not 1951. So I call it the ghost airplane. I did a show on that.
Speaking of airplanes, and again, I guess we want to go out. We got away from our flying machines. This show was all about flying machines and my family and your experiences. And we're going to go out with some more ideas on flying machines that didn't disappear. That we know that the Japanese didn't take. They didn't crash well, maybe some of them did crash into Lake Erie and or streams or off of ridges and so forth. But we're going to go out with more flying ideas here on the Captain Ernie Aviation Show, along with your guest, your host, I should say, Handy Randy. Thanks for watching, folks.
For the splendid cooperation of my wife and partner, I would never have been able to have launched this project.
This project has not been an exception to the persecution of the experts. David Graham Bell going to jail because he said he could talk over a wire from town to town. Marconi going to an insane asylum because he said he could communicate without a wire. New occasions teach new duties, they say. Time makes ancient ways uncouth. We must upward still and onward if we keep a faith.
if you use it, it can take you where your mind goes. Now you must decide. Will you stay down or keep trying? What is faith but wings for flying? There's no end to up, it goes on forever. Don't look down, don't look round, just look to the mountains of the moon. And Eureka, 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 when you don't know where you're going and you don't know who you could be, there's one thing for sure. You've been down, you know what's down there. You served your time on the ground there. There you got to fly, there's nothing else for you.
Every inventor knows that to see if his idea works, he must be willing to try it and keep on trying. But the true genius is the one who gets someone else to try out his invention for him.